Welcome to Scary Basement. Each week, me and my friend Mikey are drawn inexplicably and supernaturally to this basement, which is full of spinning tops made of teeth, judgmental cats who make you feel bad about yourself, and the abominable snowman from Ski Free who has become real. I'm Roxy Polk.
And I'm Mikey McCollor.
Let's start out, as we always do, with the scariest things that happened to us this week, Mikey. What went down in your life outside of the scary basement that spooked you to your very bones?
Well, Roxy, I'm going to tell you a thing that happened to me that doesn't sound that scary, but is actually the most horrifying thing that's ever happened in my entire life.
In your entire life? Okay, my expectations are really high now that you phrased it that way, so let me hear it.
I ripped a muscle at the gym.
Oh my god.
It's not that, it's not that bad. It's just like it kind of hurts to move around, but it's kept me out of the gym. I haven't felt up to going in a couple of days now because my left shoulder hurts so bad. And here's why that's so frightening. Because it reminds me of my mortality. Roxy, I am going to die. My body is failing. There are things I can't change. It's not like when you pop your shoulder out of its socket, you can just pop it back on and keep going on with your day. No. This is just a thing that happened. It kept me from doing something I love. And as I get older and older and closer to death, it's just going to happen more. My body is breaking down. I'm going to die soon, and it's going to be very sad for me and everyone who loves me.
Yeah, that's bad. I don't know about the soon part, though. I mean, we're all going to die someday
soon,
unless...
Roxy, it's already begun.
Because of this ripped muscle, Mikey.
Because of the ripped muscle. I'm gonna be okay. What happened to you this week that was super scary?
Okay, we'll just not think about mortality anymore. That's fine.
I like that
I'm
plan
fine with moving on.
So much.
Okay. I found out about a terrifying creature this week, Mikey.
Ooh.
Which I've sent you a photo of it. This thing is called...
I saw the first photo, and then the second photo changed my reaction drastically.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that the top photo becomes the bottom photo. And also the name of it is the Sarcastic Fringe Head.
I've seen a lot of those on the Fringe message boards in late 2009.
Yeah, this fish is a big fan of the TV show Fringe from, 2006 or whenever that came out. So not only does this thing... It's a very territorial fish who will fight anything that comes close to it, including humans. But it has a horrible mouth that it opens to threaten, which is like many times the size of its face and looks kind of like a horrible, like detached jaw thing, kind of like a predator, or like it just looks like a creature out of a horror movie. And it's also kind of like multicolored for some reason.
Can I give a quick description? It looks like, so first of all, it's like coming out of a crater from an underwater section and looks kind of like, it's like an eel that looks kind of frustrated.
Yeah.
But as it opens its mouth, you're right, there's like a predator aspect to it, but it also looks like, did you ever play in elementary school? Did you ever like get the whole class around a multicolored parachute and you like lift it up and like...
Yes.
And then go underneath it? It looks like that fish's predator mouth is that multicolored parachute.
Oh my god, that's... yeah, you're not wrong. Now I will never be able to look at those parachutes the same way again. I wonder if it evolved to prey on children in this way, Mikey. It's even more terrifying.
Ask you, were you ever going to look at those parachutes again anyway?
They have
not come up in my life as much as my gym teachers made me believe they would.
That's a good point. I mean, I did like a before and after school kids program at one point, and that was the only other time it occurred, though. So yeah, unless you're in a elementary school gymnasium, you're probably not going to see one of those. But another aspect of this fish that makes it a little more funny or maybe a little more terrifying is that how it fights with others of its species. They kiss each other. So they open up their mouths and then they compare who has the largest mouth, and whoever has the largest mouth is automatically the most dominant. So they literally just press their mouths against each other and they kiss.
I would say that most of our arguments are settled by who has the biggest mouth, but it really just comes down to the metaphor, because people who talk loudly are said to have big mouths.
Yes, I guess so.
I will also say I have definitely been in relationships where we kiss each other when we're fighting.
I mean,
it's not fun.
That can be okay. I guess not.
It's love as a weapon.
Well, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I didn't either.
Oh, here he is. You hear that?
DemonBot.
Mikey and Roxy, last week I tasked you to watch the 1998 film The Faculty, directed by Robert Rodriguez and starring Jordana Brewster, Josh Hartnett, and Elijah Wood. Did you watch the film, or are your souls forfeit?
Yes, I watched it. Did you, Mikey?
I watched the movie The Faculty, yes.
Okay, great.
Good, then you may keep your souls.
Roxy, we're going to keep our souls.
I don't know.
For now.
See? There he goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was to be expected, but it still hurt.
I appreciate you being positive, though. I like that about you.
I'm a cheery boy. Roxy, we watched The Faculty.
We sure did.
What a movie. It starred Frodo. It starred...
Josh Hartnett
from Halloween H2O. It starred Famke Johnson from GoldenEye. And it starred Jon Stewart from Politics.
Yep. Also, did you ever watch Frasier?
Yes.
Okay, so like the ex-wife Lilith, she's the principal.
Principal, yes.
Yeah.
No, the moment you said it, I was like, oh, right. I wondered why I had a visceral hatred reaction to her, even before she turned into a monster.
She's very spooky. Okay, Mikey, how about we give a plot summary of this movie?
I want to do it.
Let's do it.
We open in Harrington High School in Ohio. It's having a football practice, and the resident mean drill sergeant type coach berates the students and is then approached by a figure out of frame. Later that evening, a school budget meeting between the teachers turns bad when the coach shows up and pursues Principal Drake. Unfortunately, just when Drake thinks she has escaped with the help of another teacher, Mrs. Olson turns on her and stabs Principal Drake, killing her. Wow, what's going on in this school?
Nothing good, I can tell you that. The next morning, we're introduced to our plucky teen cast. Casey, a photography nerd working for the school paper. Delilah, head cheerleader and in charge of the school paper and overall mean girl. Stokely, an outcast goth who is also a sci-fi nerd. Stan, a quarterback, and Delilah's boyfriend who wants to quit being a quarterback so he can be a smart guy. Mary Beth, a new girl with a southern accent, and Zeke, super smart underachiever and a local school drug dealer who's repeating a year.
Love that guy. While hiding from the bullies at lunch, Casey finds a strange creature on the football field that looks like a small slug. The creature appears dead, and when he takes it to his science teacher, played by Jon Stewart, we learn that this is a new species that resembles sea parasites. When water is accidentally splashed on it, the creature comes to life and then is put into an aquarium where it's not only thriving, but multiplying, baby. This creature even bites Jon Stewart as he reaches his hand into the aquarium.
Later that day, Stan is in the boys' shower when one of the elderly teachers stumbles in asking for help as her body horrifyingly deteriorates rapidly. Meanwhile, Delilah and Casey are looking for a new story for the school paper and enter the faculty lounge, hoping to find some juicy drama. Unfortunately, they have to hide in a closet when 3 of the teachers enter the room. And to their horror, 2 of the teachers attack and force a parasite into the ear of the 3rd one, who happens to be the school nurse. They then find the body of the now dead elderly teacher who was in the shower earlier, freak out, and rush out of the room, narrowly escaping the homicidal teachers.
Casey then tells his parents of the horror he just experienced and brings 2 cops with him. However, Principal Drake is back, looking good, and all she and the other teachers are obviously covering up what happened, playing it off as a misunderstanding with a CPR doll. The cops are, of course, annoyed, and the principal takes one of them into her office. And after he leaves, that officer appears changed. Something's not right here, but damn it all, the adults won't listen.
Casey meets with Stokely, who's a notable sci-fi fan, and tells her what happened. It seems like a body snatcher situation to her, but something is still off. They then meet up with Stan and Delilah and theorize that aliens are taking over the school. It's gotta be aliens. Zeke and Mary Beth, who are next door, overhear and come and join in. Zeke teases them about how crazy they sound.
While the teens talk, Jon Stewart shows up, and he isn't acting like himself. No witty zingers here. Suddenly, Jon Stewart attacks and attempts to infect the teens, getting his fingers cut off, and one of the pens containing the signature drug that Zeke cooks stabbed into his eye. The teens all watch as the drug dries out the parasite and kills it. This tells them that the creature needs water to survive, and humans are the perfect host. But also, these things can be killed.
They go to Zeke's place, and all have to take a test to prove they aren't infected. Time to take some drugs.
Whoop, whoop.
One by one, they each take a hit to prove they are still human. But when they get to Delilah, she's infected. She smashes Zeke's setup so that they can't make any more of the drug and runs away. Stokely theorizes that they must be controlled by a queen, and if they find and kill that queen who's controlling everyone, it will kill the parasites and free everyone. So they do what they can by taking the last of Zeke's stash that wasn't smashed and go to the school to search for the queen.
A football game with the whole town in attendance is happening at the school, and people are being infected left and right. Our ragtag teens may be the only humans left. Meanwhile, Principal Drake sees them and makes her way over to the isolated gym, where the teens have set a trap. They shoot her and douse her with a large amount of the drug. Principal Drake dies, but they aren't sure if she's the queen.
Stan goes to confront his old football coach who's out on the field to see if the plan worked, but he is sadly infected in the process. The plan didn't work at all. Zeke and Casey need to get more of the drug from his car in order to defend themselves and leave Stokely and Mary Beth in the gym. It's then revealed that Mary Beth herself, the demure Southern transfer student, was the queen the whole time. She attacks and infects Stokely. She then knocks out Zeke, who returns, and now it's down to Casey. Casey uses the bleachers to trap the queen and jabs a fistful of the pens filled with drug into her eye, killing her for good and freeing everyone who is still alive.
1 month later, things are relatively back to normal. Casey has become famous for speaking out about the incident and defeating the queen, even though the FBI denies that it happened. Stan is happy being an academic and quitting football for some reason. Stokely, not goth anymore. She is dating Stan. They're happy together. God bless them. Zeke has joined the football team, for some reason, and is maybe having sex with his teacher. Delilah and Casey, also dating. What's happening? Some of the teachers are still mysteriously missing, but otherwise, damn, that's a happy ending. And that is the faculty.
That's a faculty.
Ooh, Roxy, I feel like we learned a lot, not only about students, about teachers, about aliens, but also about ourselves.
Yeah, we sure did.
I came away from this movie thinking that, like, here's my big question. Is Stokely a god?
God?
Because she is functioning. Okay, in a lot of movies, you have, like, the scientist who comes in, and, I'm picturing in Cloverfield, they, like, go into this tent, and there's, like, a team of scientists, and they're like, here's what we can tell about the parasite. From our scientific analysis, this is it. This is how the rules are. This is this and this. Stokely rolls in, and she's like, I've read 2 or 3 books, and this is what I think is happening, and she is exactly right.
That's true. Yeah. I think there's like a line that Elijah Wood says where it's like, well, who's to say that these books weren't based off of a real thing that happened to somebody once?
I'll tell you who Elijah Wood. Me and every other human being. That's how we know. It's so funny that this movie, like, almost operates under the hypothesis that imagination is not real. Like, there must have been something to one happen to inspire any story to be written.
Yeah, I think also because it's a pretty genre savvy movie. So the fact that they, you know how like in zombie movies, people won't know that zombie media exists, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
So I feel like this film subverts that, where they're like, we know that Body Snatchers is like a movie and a book that exists.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's what's happening. So they use it as a point of reference and comparison.
Very similar to how Scream functions, which is written by the same man. Kevin Williamson.
It sure is.
Also wrote this movie. He won't write a movie where the characters are unaware of the genre of film they're in.
Yeah, which I think it works definitely in this movie's favor, because it makes the characters feel a little bit more like smart in a way. Like they're making leaps in logic that aren't as ridiculous as a lot of other movie characters. I mean, they sure are, but it's kind of like not in a way that takes me out of the movie when they do something, I guess.
I go the opposite. It did take me out of the movie that they, again, I was like, what? Why is Stokely right? They're just like, they just become so confident that once they kill the queen, then everything's going to be okay. And
yeah, see, I didn't think about that either, because they're like, we hope that's what happens, but we don't actually know. So they were like, we'll see if that happens. Let's find out, I guess.
It feels like there was a draft.
She ends up being right, but they don't know, I guess.
It feels like there was a draft where, again, there's like a science type character who tells them like 100% if you kill the queen, this works. Because they act with such certainty towards like finding the queen and also, I love their reasoning for thinking that it's Principal Drake. They're like, well, she's in charge of the school. Of course she's in charge of the aliens.
Yeah, it's a very kid way to think about it, you know?
It's one of my pet peeves in pretty much any media when, like, we know something that the characters don't. So the fact that we had seen Principal Drake not be the original faculty monster tells us that, it's kind of got me rooting against the characters. I'm like, don't do this. I know it's a waste of time. So I always get frustrated with that. But, like, it is, you're exactly right. It is very funny for the kids to think that, like, it's weird. It's like the kids think their universe is so small that, like, the way we look at the world is what the truth must be. And they end up being right, which I do think plays into what we'll get into in a second of the big picture of the movie. But we'll save that for later. Sex secrets.
I think also because you see them acting in sort of like a hive mind setup. So like the kids kind of guess that. That's how they guess that it's like, oh, okay, there is someone controlling them probably, because the way that they communicate, the way they know things, it wouldn't be accurate if it was just an individual. So they're like sharing information.
That's true. And they also do, I think, a really smart thing where they make all of our teens, like, they never have the grown-up who tells them what's going on. They never have the scientist. It's all our teens. I don't necessarily buy that Josh Hartnett is a science genius, but I like that they kept it within the family, that it's just our people that are interacting with this story.
I think part of that is because, like, he figured out how to cook these drugs himself and, like, sell them and everything. So it's kind of like he taught himself that, or he taught himself things he was interested in, which I guess happened to be science. But he also doesn't give a shit about school itself, I guess. So that's why it doesn't really show up in any other way, I suppose.
You know what? That kind of makes me think a little bit about, like, I can't tell if I love this or hate this about the movie, but the characters they're not characters so much as they are, like, archetypes, right? They are
it's
the
very
lonely
Breakfast
nerd.
Club with everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to the point where even Delilah says this in, like, the line that ripped me out of the movie. I was like, no teen would ever say this. She says to Elijah Wood, she's like, you're the Stephen King type kid. Every school has one. And I was like, your world is so small, you are not thinking about every other school in the world and how they have archetypes. It was like, that to me was like her, like, not just breaking the fourth wall, but like grabbing the fourth wall and leaping up and around it like a nimble gymnast. I was like,
so I thought you were going to say a different line, because she does this twice, I'm realizing now that you're bringing that up. When Stan is like trying to tell her something important about himself that she doesn't want to listen to. And when he finally does, he's like, I'm going to quit football because I don't want to do it anymore. She's like, okay, well, I guess I have to break up with you.
Yes.
Because that's the pecking order of the school. That's how it works. You get it, right? So it's like she really doesn't give a shit about him or anything.
Her feelings are not based on this person she's with. Her feelings are based on what she has been grafted onto her.
Yeah,
like,
her
role.
Expectations. Yeah, her role is like head cheerleader, head kind of like mean girl of the school, essentially. And she kind of feels like the only one that doesn't sort of have an arc. Like, she comes out with dating Elijah Wood at the end, which makes no sense. They don't have any chemistry. And she's also just like mean
strong disagree. I was so into them.
I mean, maybe. She's like mean the whole time, so it's kind of like...
I think because she was mean to him.
I don't think that she should get... She didn't have an arc. Why does she get, like, the happy ending? Like, Casey can do better. He should be smarter after coming out of this to know he doesn't need her. You know, I get him having a crush on her beforehand, but then it kind of turning out with them is kind of like, I don't know.
Well, he didn't become a eunuch.
No, I know. I guess, okay, so you're just like, she's hot, so it's fine.
Right. If he had his dick bitten off by the queen at the end, I'd be like, yeah, of course he's not together with her.
He's famous. He's famous at this point, though, so he could probably find someone else he liked better, who was also hot.
Strong disagree. Nobody at that school is hotter than what's-her-face. Also, looks like a 32-year-old woman. If she had played one of the faculty, I would have equally bought it.
To be clear, Jordana Brewster was 18 years old at the time of the film's release.
So if you see what she looks like now, she's more like a Highlander, because it kind of looks like she hasn't aged that much also since that movie.
Cool.
Yeah.
Frozen in time.
That's kind of cool for her. Maybe she was actually the alien queen the whole time. She's
I mean, I thought there was no reason for them not to go that way. So we do end up getting, like, the basic structure of this movie is we have to find the original alien, and once we kill them, we'll be done here.
Yeah.
And the original alien ends up being the most obvious choice.
Did you have her pegged right away? Because, like, I know you hadn't seen this, Mikey. I had seen it before when I was younger, but so you pegged her as being the alien in the first.
When the question of like who is the original queen, that it's somebody who has come into our lives and started doing this, I was like, well, probably the new girl, right? Like, if we don't address it very clearly right away, and they kind of try to do a fake out where she does like take the drug that would have killed her,
with the test,
and like I was like, that didn't count. Like, I didn't see her do it. She didn't act high or anything.
Because, like, her and Delilah take it at the same time, and then, like, Delilah being outed kind of distracts everyone.
Exactly.
So, like, her tilting her head back, it totally looks like she did. And then, like, after Delilah runs away, she comes out kind of giggling, like, hee, I'm high. This is what high people do, right? And also the entire scene, it's great that we've already watched and talked about The Thing on this podcast, because that whole scene where they take the drugs is like an homage to that scene from The Thing, only they're all getting high.
Very
instead
fun.
of doing the blood test.
What a smart thing to say, like, okay, we're going to do the thing scene, but they're teenagers, so what is the twist on it? It's like, oh yeah, teenagers get high all the time.
And we have a character who makes the drugs and is a drug dealer, so why not?
Just a beautiful bit of synergy for this
There's
movie.
also that part with the decapitated head. So there's the hot teacher who is what is her name? Framke? What?
Famke Johnson.
Okay, sorry. I always mispronounce her name. I will probably continue to mispronounce her name. But she's like a very meek teacher who sees that Zeke is like smart and wants to encourage him to do better, and he's shitty to her.
It's the meanest I've ever seen somebody be. Like, there's this scene where she goes out and talks to Zeke in the parking lot, and he basically like holds up condoms, like, do you need these? And it's like him telling her, like, have you ever had sex? And she like starts to cry. It's like the most horrifying scene I've never felt worse for a character.
Well, because she's like trying to be really nice and encouraging, and he is like, he doesn't want that. And you can tell, like, the way Josh Hartnett portrays it, it's kind of like he needs someone to care about him, but he's pushing them away because he can't deal with it. Like, he can't deal with having someone genuinely invested in his future, I guess. So he's being horrible. First, he like jokes about chocolate laxatives. It's like, oh yeah, it's uptight, constipated teacher, huh? And then I got like these cherry condoms, making jokes about that. And I think her performance too, like you were saying, is just, it's so mean. I think she says something about him like being extremely cruel, and then just like leaves and is borderline crying.
She says, that's so rude.
Just rude?
And it's, which,
okay,
like,
I mean, she's not wrong, but I thought she said the word cruel for some reason.
Exactly right. And that's what's so heartbreaking about it. It's like such an understated response. It's like, it's so little, like, you can tell how much it's affected her that she can't even get out how cruel it was. Like, she's devastated by it. It really broke my heart.
Yeah, and then it's such a twist later, because when she becomes possessed by the parasite, like, her inhibitions are kind of gone, and she's like allowed to let out how angry she is at him. So she like berates him and takes him down like completely in front of like a bunch of the other students.
It does rule.
It's pretty good.
It does feel like simultaneously cathartic, but also like, it reminds me of when King Joffrey dies in Game of Thrones, where like, I did want him to die because I hated him, but then also once it happened, I was like, oh, that's still a little boy who's choking to death. Like, this kind of had that same feeling where it's like, yeah, I'm glad she's taking him down, but it's like, but also he's a teen.
Yeah, and she's like infected by the parasite, so you know it's not her. Right. So you're like, damn, it got to her too, and I wanted something better for that character.
Exactly. It's not only like a teenager who is like her charge, but like, it's not her. It's like, we're not even getting that revenge that we really want, because it's the parasite getting it, and instead of her going through a like satisfying arc.
Yeah, because like, however frustrated she was, she seems like a genuinely good person who she just wanted her student to do better. So you would think that if she was in her right mind, that wouldn't be satisfying for her either, to an extent.
Roxy, do you think this is Famke Johnson's best performance of her career?
I mean, I don't remember her in the James Bond movie, but I do remember her in the X-Men movies. I don't know. I liked her in this performance.
I think
would
this
have
is
to
an
look at them
incredible
again.
performance. If she had had sex with one man and crushed them to death with her legs, like she did in the James Bond movie, it would 100% be her best performance.
Okay. Wow, man, I don't understand how I didn't remember that movie.
I'll tell you how I remember.
Like
that was a game-changing moment for old Mikey McCollor.
But to get back onto the Thing reference, there's a part where Josh Hartnett hits her with a car and she becomes decapitated. And then the head is crawling around like the head from the Thing, which was very funny.
Well, and then also she like puts it back on her neck. And then at the end, after they do kill the queen, she's just like, fine.
Yeah.
I love that. It healed her neck wound and then she was able to move on. And you got sex vibes from her and Josh Hartnett at the end, right?
The way that they're looking at each other and she's like, why is she watching his football game and then waving in that way?
Yeah.
Like, that seemed more like this is your girlfriend supporting you instead of this is your teacher supporting you. And so it kind of, I got different relationship vibes from them as if something had changed.
Well, we do have to remember that Josh Hartnett is a year behind. He's repeating his senior year.
Yeah, so he's probably like, he's at least 18, maybe 19.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and if he had graduated, it would have been a former student. So I was going to say, what's the problem? But I was like, nah, it's still a problem. It would still be uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's
obvious sexual tension.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, they're both kind of just like sexy people, I guess. And
aren't they?
Yeah.
I also had a note very early on that I said, I am so excited for Stan and Stokely to fuck. They had chemistry.
They did. Yeah, it was very cute.
Ugh. Stokely, of course, a science fiction nerd. Stan, this is another example of like characters who are not characters but are archetypes. He's like, I don't want to be a football guy. I want to do academics. Like, he keeps saying the word academics, which is not a word
yeah, it's not like specifically, like normally also wouldn't you want to do something specific, you would think, instead of just general academics, I guess?
Exactly. Like if he found himself getting interested in English and he was like, I want to quit to like work on my book or read more, like even that I wouldn't buy, but I could buy it a little more than like, I'm interested in generally having good grades. Like, no, you're not. No human is.
I guess the way he phrased it, it was kind of more of like a moralistic thing where people were rewarding him not for his actual abilities because like he'd do well in football, then do bad in academic stuff. Like I can't remember what the test was. And like the teacher bumped his D up to an A and he was like, you know what? That's fucked up. So it kind of just shows like how maybe he's just not very smart enough. I'm sure it's more of like, it's an archetype thing that they wrote. They weren't thinking too hard into it. But it also could come across as like, he just doesn't know that much yet because he hasn't really studied anything. So
as
it's again a very kid way of looking at it, maybe.
I'm wondering how many human beings screenwriter Kevin Williamson has ever interacted with. Because he really does think of them as cardboard boxes that you fill up with specifics as opposed to like complex people, which he did a lot in Scream. Like Randy is the film nerd and the characters called him the film nerd, right? As like the boyfriend always did it. Like Neve Campbell is the virgin. Like he's just thinking about people as these silhouettes as opposed to this. It almost felt like this movie was trying to attack that. And
in a way, yeah, because it's kind of like genre aware, I guess.
Right. And the idea that everybody kind of switches genres at the end is kind of as much as somebody who doesn't understand that people are complex can say that people are complex, right? Like we're watching it and we just know this is just like rearranging the deck chairs, but it's still the same number of seats at the table. Whereas like what it feels like they're trying to say by having science nerd Josh Hartnett become a football player and
yeah, that's very weird too, especially because like we talked about this before we went live, so we should talk about it now, how where the characters end up is kind of, some of them seem like strange choices. Like, why is Josh Hartnett doing football now? Makes absolutely no sense. Especially because, like, his thing that he was good at in school that he didn't apply himself to was academic stuff. Like, he was good in the English class and he was good in the science class. He knew those things about him. So it's a really weird left turn to have him be in football. And then Stokely, she's a goth. She was never, like, posing as a goth. Like, she liked being a goth. Like, why at the end is she no longer a goth and she's wearing, like, a pink patterned skirt or something for no reason. And
That's
it's not
what I
like when
mean.
she's dating Stan, like, he liked her as a goth, so it's not like she's changing for him. It's really weird.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, it feels like there's some sort of attempt at a statement being made that these people don't exist in these, like, rigid cookie cutter roles. But, like,
Yeah.
changing to a different cookie cutter is still a cookie cutter. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's why, like, I don't think the ending is super effective, although I am stoked for Elijah Wood. I'm glad he gets to have sex with 35-year-old senior Jordana Brewster.
I think, yeah, aside from the ending, like, I like a lot about this movie, and I think the performances, with them being kind of like these archetype characters, the performances that the actors bring to it really sell it more.
Yeah.
And where I don't really think about it as much. Until, like, we have to break it down in this way. Like, when you're watching the movie, you're not thinking as much about it. Like, you realize, yes, that's the jock, yes, that's the nerd, but you're not it doesn't take you out of the movie, or at least it didn't for me.
Yeah, I definitely had to have a come to Jesus moment with this movie where I was like, this is bothering me, but it's a weird, dumb choice, and I'm gonna just decide to like it. I think that's how I end up liking as many movies as I do. Like, when something starts bothering me, I can just be like, well, that's like a funny thing to do. Like, that's not a thing that I see a ton of movies. Like, movies are either not self-aware and they make their character a jock and he just is a jock, or they are self-aware and they say that jocks are an iteration of humanity and there are certain things keeping a jock from being good at academics or being kind to the people in his life. And it explores that. But this movie is both self-aware but continues to do it, which is like this very, like, I understand I have done wrong, teacher, and I'm going to continue to do so. It's like a non-apology, which is, again, very funny and weird and made me kind of enjoy it.
Okay, yeah, I'd say that's an interesting way to look at it. What?
Okay,
No,
that sounds
sorry.
like bullshit.
No, I couldn't think of anything more articulate to say past what you said. I didn't mean for that to sound like
No,
you're
fine. I thought it was very funny.
Okay.
How'd you feel about the end where the queen, who we find out is the new girl, Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson, who she hilariously tells everybody her full name most of the
with
time we meet
her southern accent, because she's a transfer student.
Once she's outed as the queen, she's walking around buck-ass naked.
Yeah, and she does not care.
Doesn't care, continuing to kill them. Made me feel a little weird. Didn't make me feel great.
Well, she's kind of like posing as this naive, kind of demure girl to kind of like be unassuming. And then it feels like she's her real self once she finally reveals herself, especially because she's talking about how, like, oh, I make you guys the best version of yourselves. That's why I'm in her mind, she doesn't really feel like it's a bad thing she's doing.
Yeah.
Necessarily. And like, you can kind of see when people get infected, they do become like sexier sometimes. Or like the angry coach, the angry coach becomes like more reined in, and like he's still as authoritative as he was before, but he's like more unsettling, which I guess we haven't talked about him. The coach is by the Terminator. Is it T2?
I want to say it's T2, yes.
Yeah,
because
like
I
the liquid
recognized him,
Terminator.
and it wasn't until just now when you said, is it Terminator? I was like, oh, right, that's where I know him from. It's Terminator.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen Terminator 1.
I can't believe I'm like blanking on his name right now, but like he's really good at that type of character. And so at the beginning, he's like absolutely losing it, yelling and screaming at students. But then after that, he's like more reined in, but like way more threatening than he ever was when he was screaming.
Yeah. Which is, first of all, how it works.
Yep.
Like, you are not as threatening. Like, you come across like a giant toddler when you're screaming that much.
Exactly. So he kind of becomes the most threatening version of himself.
Something I 100% need to point out in this film, there is 0.0% chance that screenwriter Kevin Williamson has ever watched a single play of football. It is shockingly embarrassing the way these people talk about football.
Okay, I was wondering if you were going to comment on it, because I forgot that the football featured quite so prominently, because they have a game that happens where they're like infecting people.
There's a game where if they had revealed that this coach had been infected, I would have loved it and would have maybe bought it. But what happens is an uninfected coach, the coach of the other team, says, "Let's go, guys. Let's play 4 quarters." And it's like, yeah, you're going to. That's how long a football game is.
Is that like not what they would say? I guess
100% not. No, it is.
Okay.
What happened is, I know exactly what happened.
Okay.
Kevin Williamson went and talked to coaches about what you would say. And there is kind of this idea that, like, some teams have like a mental toughness barrier that it's like by the end of the game, you start getting so tired that you kind of give up. And then that's how like games get closer towards the end. And so they'll say something along the lines of, we're going to play 4 quarters today. But that's not an inspirational thing you would shout at your teams.
Okay, especially not at the beginning, I guess.
It would never come up, and you wouldn't say it like that because you'd be like, all right, guys, let's go play 4 quarters. And they'd be like, correct. That is the amount of time we will play. Like, that's not inspirational. That is the number. So it's like, I understand where you got that. And then the other thing is, Stokely, when she's connecting with Stan, has this conversation where she kind of reveals that she's been watching him and she's been invested in his football career.
Yeah,
and
he says
something
crush.
like, the team has won so many times. And Stokely says, in a way that is supposed to impress the football guy, she says, well, that's because of you and all your completed passes.
Oh, that's right. That is what she said.
If she was an alien in that moment, I would have loved it. She was not. She was ostensibly a human being who follows football. Nobody has ever said, thanks to you and your completed passage. You would maybe talk about completion percent.
Okay,
maybe.
Mikey, she's like a teen with a crush, though, so she's trying to be like, Teehee, you're really good at the thing that you do. So what about from that angle?
If they weren't trying to portray it as her, like, shocking him and saying that she knows something about football?
Yeah, he does receive it like, oh, hey.
Yes,
you've
exactly.
been following the games?
You know about football. And I'm over here going, no, she doesn't.
Maybe he's just like, maybe he started being into her and then was just like, okay, I'll just be nice about it.
You know what? You're making the exact same point I tried to make earlier. You're right. If the aliens had bit his penis off earlier in the film, I would have much more of a problem. But you're exactly right. He was turned on by the hot goth chick, and he's like, yeah, you're right. Completed passes. Yep, that's a thing.
Yeah, because, like, it definitely shows that she is interested. I mean, even if she doesn't know what the fuck she's saying, maybe.
Yeah. No, I like it now.
I'm glad I could turn that scene around for you.
Roxy, what would you say is the big idea of this movie?
Man, okay, so it's dealing with like a couple of things, I'd say, but overall it is kind of like a coming of age story, but also about just like the horrors of what is expected of you versus what you want to be, and like not being able to trust like the environment you're growing up in, maybe, and maybe even yourself, because all the characters feel like they kind of can't at the beginning to an extent.
See, I very much got a lot of that, like, it's us versus them. It is kids versus teachers. It felt very 90s in the sense that, like,
yes,
like these kids, even though this is not a 90s song, but like, hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. It's like,
yes, it's very anti-authoritarian also in that way.
I think this movie is so much more effective when it is just the faculty being converted. And I didn't necessarily mind the justification they have. Like, there's a scene where the coach and like Mrs. Beasley or whatever the hell her name is, one of the other teachers who we know is converted, they're having this conversation. They're like, have you begun converting the students? And they said, no, we're just doing the faculty first. And it's when it becomes student versus teacher, and the horrifying thing that is happening to the teacher is that they are all becoming the same. Like, that is a very 90s idea that, like, I'm going to rebel against what you're trying to teach me because I have to maintain myself. It's coming from this very teenage place of don't stamp out my individuality by making me learn about Moby Dick.
Yeah, it's definitely about individualism for sure, just based on the whole parasite hive mind aspect of it alone. And especially
the teens who win do articulate individualism in various ways to, like, again, to like varying success. Like, we didn't really buy it, but I think that's very clearly what they're getting at here, is that for an assimilated thing to take control of Josh Hartnett means he would never get to be a football player, because the assimilation assumes that you are a stoner washout.
Yeah, and it's like that character flaw or that personality flaw you have isn't optimal, so we'll just get rid of it.
Right.
And just kind of steamroll it, so then everybody becomes the same level of, I don't know, success, I guess, or whatever.
It flattens the curve. It turns us all into milquetoast little piles of unseasoned mashed potatoes.
Yeah, which is kind of how you can, like, potentially view the school system, because you're just being taught the same curriculum to an extent. A bunch of standardized tests, you know.
It
being forced to learn things you don't care about just to, like, because you have to be there, you know?
Like, you could be someone who is really good at math, but doesn't give a shit about science. And you could be like the next math genius of the 22nd century. But like, you don't get to study that. You have to go to all your other classes and stuff too. So you're kind of forced to learn a bunch of shit you don't care about.
It does feel very like, I don't know. I'm trying to describe it. It almost feels like Calvin and Hobbes, like kids versus parents. Calvin and Hobbes isn't really about that. But it does have this vibe of just like thumbing your nose at authority in the way that like almost Beavis and Butthead did. Like,
well, I think also when you're a kid, your perception of teachers, I don't know, it's going to vary, especially from elementary school to middle school to high school. But there are these adults who seem to know what they're doing, and like they're kind of inscrutable. So there's already that distance. So now you put on this aspect where it's like, oh, they're even more weird and disconnected from me than before. And now they're horrifying and they're trying to manipulate me.
I mean, that is the fear, right? That I think the core fear of this movie is that these people who I don't care for are going to turn me into them.
Yes.
And that's horrifying. I would hate to be most of my elementary school and middle school teachers. I had a couple cool high school teachers that I wouldn't mind being. If I turned into Darryl Lindquist, AP chemistry teacher from my 11th grade year.
You took an AP chemistry class? Holy shit,
I did,
Mikey.
yeah.
Oh, that is not what I would have expected. I mean,
Not sure why.
because you were good at it, maybe?
Not really.
I mean, you didn't flunk it, did you?
No, I
That's
got like an
pretty
A in it. I did really good in that
there you
class.
go. You're actually really good at it. What are you
I was
talking
really
about? You're
good at
not
it.
good at it.
Well,
yeah.
but again, I had a great teacher. He was an older man. He was
See,
very grandfatherly. Loved his family a lot. Love and miss him.
Well, I think we've been talking about it in sort of a negative sense for up until this point, but yeah, like having the right teacher can make all the difference to a kid, you know? And I think, was it Famke? I already forgot how to say her name correctly.
Famke Janssen. Or in GoldenEye, Xenia Onatop.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Onatop because she got on top of men and crushed them to death with her legs.
Good for her. I love that for her.
Good for you.
But so she definitely has like the motivation to be that kind of teacher that, you know, gives a shit about you and wants the best for you and is also like very, very smart. Like she knows the thing she's teaching, but like she lacks the motivation to be better at it, I guess.
Right.
So like there's a sliver of that there. Whereas like, I don't know, actually Jon Stewart's teacher is pretty good too. Like he's engaging with the students. They seem pretty into like the way he's talking about the weird new creature that they find and everything.
But he also has this like for-profit filter applied over every one of his opinions. He's like, when he sees the new species, he's like super excited to take it to the university. He's like, I'm gonna get all that grant money. Like there's this, like they couldn't decide if he was supposed to be cast as a teacher who we liked and were connecting with, or just like a nothing guy who just saw like his one.
I mean, I guess they start the school teacher introduction, well, I guess aside from the coach, showing that they have absolutely no budget for anything else except the football team. So the way that came to me was like, oh, he can finally like teach more and do more with his department than he could before.
That sounds right. I could see that.
Because it seems like he cares about science. But then you have the history teacher guy who day drinks, and could not give a shit. He does not want to be there. Yeah. So you have kind of like the gamut of that. I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced different flavors of those in our time at school. But I've had plenty of great teachers who, you know, made like a reasonably good impact on me, and plenty of teachers who made me hate certain subjects and stuff just because of the way they taught their classes. So it's just like how influential a teacher can be and how much power they have in that sense as well, which I think again adds to this movie.
Yeah. And how complex, again, like you can't just put a box around people and say they are a teacher, because there are good teachers and bad teachers. There are good jocks and bad jocks. There are stupid girls who run newspapers, and there are deeply intelligent girls who like science fiction. Like there's all kinds of human beings. And I guess that's the thing that bums me out about this movie, is the flattening of all of these.
At the end? Or you mean in the characterization in general?
At the end and throughout.
Yeah.
It's fine. Now that like I said, I talked myself into liking it because it's funny to see like a specific brain's thoughts on how archetypes mash into each other. What does it look like when this nerd and the prima donna girl get together?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about too how this is like such an encapsulation of the 90s.
This is like distilled 90s. I was looking up some other stuff too, and like to promote the movie, they did a crossover like brand thing with Tommy Hilfiger. So a lot of the characters are wearing Tommy Hilfiger in the movie as well.
Cool.
And there's a commercial out there that has them in it, including Usher, even though Usher was barely even in the movie.
Poor Usher. What a waste.
He's probably doing other stuff at the time, I would guess.
True. He's very busy.
But they have him on the movie poster, and it's like, he's barely in it. I know you did it for, like, billing, but, like...
That's such a direct-to-DVD move. When they've got, like, 25 seconds of Leonardo DiCaprio before Titanic, that he just made this shitty movie, and they're like, wow, the Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Yep.
It's about robots. Roxy, I got a question for you.
Do ya? What's the question?
Roxy, how are you and I gonna know for each other if we've been assimilated? Be it by faculty-style aliens, be it by body snatchers, be it by Chuckies. You know, Chucky can split his soul
Chucky,
now.
okay. Well, I think with, like, the body snatcher thing, they're very sort of robotic, and they get rid of, like, things or processes in your life that it would deem unnecessary. So I'd say if I stopped liking video games or caring about video games, that'd be a really easy thing for you to peg.
Okay, yep, video games sounds right.
You'd be like, Roxy, do you play a video game this week? And if I said no, then you'd be like, okay, you're obviously a pod person.
Okay, great. I will keep that in my back pocket.
What about you, Mikey?
I think that, like, my fear is that some of these pod people will get into my memories and they will...
Oh.
That they will know to say, like...
Yeah, that's a good point. We didn't really talk about that.
Here's the thing. There is no instant takeover, right? There's always some sort of fight. You always see the creature, like, trying to climb in the mouth, and it's like, fighting against it and trying to reach in and pull it out, or like, get out of my brain. I'm not going to fight it, okay? I'm going to be assimilated. But the very first thing I'm going to do when I have the last bit of my self-control is, Roxy, I'm going to cut off the tip of my left finger.
What? Okay.
Because it can't grow them back, right? It's just body snatched.
What if it can, though? But the monsters in this one could reattach heads.
Oh,
I guess they couldn't reattach fingers, though. When Jon Stewart lost his eye and a bunch of his fingers, they were gone. Okay.
So even if I'm saying to you, yeah, of course I played a video game this week, Roxy, you just glance at my left hand. If my...
Left hand,
right under the fingernail line. That's where I'm slicing. So just that little tip. If that's gone, you know it's not me.
Gotcha. I will look for your left hand.
If I accidentally cut that off in an unrelated accident, I will report in to you immediately, and we will decide a new finger.
Okay, good. You gotta keep me up to date on that, because otherwise I'm gonna think we're being invaded. If you have some sort of unfortunate accident. So.
No, Roxy, don't shoot me in the brain with a shotgun.
But I got it. You were infected.
I just chopped the salad wrong.
Did you say salad tongs?
I chopped the salad wrong.
Oh, okay.
Roxy, I couldn't chop the salad tongs.
It's very difficult. It's like, why would you try to chop salad tongs? He's got to be infected.
Roxy, on a scale of 1 to 9, since 10, of course, doesn't exist in the scary basement, that would be insane. How likely would you say the faculty is to happening?
So this might be... I said a 9 for invasion tactics. So if there were smart aliens who are trying to take people over, this is a good way to do it. You just got to be more subtle. Totally good invasion tactic. So if something had it out for us and wanted to take us over, yeah, they totally do it like this.
That's interesting. I went the exact opposite way. I said a 2.
Okay.
Because I don't buy that killing the main parasite erases the rest.
Yeah, I mean, that's too convenient. It's too convenient of a wrap-up.
Convenient. If we get, like, there was a monster rooting around in your body. Like, Famke Johnson isn't, like, stitching her head back on and going back to work. She's filling hundreds of tiny wounds on the inside of her body. Yeah,
the fact that everyone's okay at the end is not a little too picture perfect, that they just didn't want to explain the carnage and leave it on a sour note, I guess.
Speaking of explaining the carnage, this is something, this is maybe unrelated, but it is involving horror movies that I do want to deal with, that the faculty actually does right.
Oh.
I'm tired of horror movies going to the hospital. Somebody gets stabbed by Michael Myers, they take him to the hospital, the whole movie ends up in the hospital. It just happened on the Chucky TV series that we're watching and loving. I am tired of horror movies in hospitals. So from now on, if you get stabbed by Michael Myers, you either die right there, or you come back the next day at full health.
I mean, that would be convenient. I guess those are always playing on, like, the horror of being in a hospital, though. Like, hospitals can be scary places, so it just gives them another location. But I understand. It is.
It's never about the horror of the hospital. It's just like they feel like they have to do it. It's just this drudgery. It's like, now we gotta get to the hospital part. And then the movie picks up when somebody's like, I don't care. And they rip the IV out of their arm and then they go on the hunt. That's when the movie starts again.
Yeah. So
the faculty, good job not sending anybody to the hospital to get their head reattached. Just, everybody's fine. We're moving on. I don't care anymore.
So, Mikey, we had a bet last week, which was how many of the main characters make it out alive?
I said 3.
Yeah, you said 3. I said 2. So I kept it to the teens. So the answer is 5 teens.
Whoa.
5 main character teens make it out alive.
Because
I'm not counting Usher. Sorry, Usher.
That's a big W for old Mikey McCollor.
Yeah, you won.
I never win these bets.
Don't say that. You just won right now. So.
I know. That's why it's so exciting. I feel like you're on a... We should probably be keeping track of them, A. But B,
yeah,
I feel like you've been on a run.
I have been, actually, in some of these current ones, which... I mean, some of it is me just Price is Right undercutting you. Or overcutting you, I guess.
You know what? I'm committing right now. I'm going to find out, before our next episode, what the current tally is of bet wins, Roxy versus Mikey, and I will report back next week. We'll know where we stand. And at some point, there will be one of us is going to have to buy the other a pizza.
Ooh, okay. Or wouldn't you rather have me get you Chipotle? Or do you want pizza?
I mean, one of us will Postmates, the other dinner.
Okay, cool.
Maybe we say by the end of the year. Bet. Although we might be, I don't know when this episode is coming out. It might be the end of the year right now.
Yeah, it'll be like, November, December, I think. I can't do math right now.
Who cares? This is not interesting. Roxy.
Hey. My dinner's very interesting.
About release schedule on the podcast. Roxy, there were a lot of people being possessed at the end of this movie. We got to the entire town had become the faculty, right?
Yes.
What that tells me is that Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson was active well before she possessed the coach. I think she was infecting people even beforehand. So here's what I'm thinking we can do. Let's set the dials on the universal mirror to follow Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson in her universe and watch the chain. Let's see who else Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson infected before she got to the coach. Are you ready?
Okay. Yep. I'm ready.
All right. We'll just turn the dials here. There she is. Okay. So this is when she first came to Earth. It looks like Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson crashed in a cornfield.
Oh,
and the very first person that she turned, well before she made her way over to the coach, was a corn farmer. And
okay, makes sense. That tracks.
Looking in this mirror, learning a little bit more about the corn farmer, it appears as though he only eats corn.
That can't be good for your diet. He must be very malnourished and probably have scurvy.
You're exactly right, because what's happening is we're getting little, like, profiles of the characters in the movie universe and learning little bullet points about them. So I do see that the first bullet point is he only eats corn. The second bullet point is he is dying.
Okay, well, I mean, then he would probably benefit from being taken over because she can fix his corn problem and his dying problem.
Absolutely.
Probably.
It sounds like this possession was like a good move.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm seeing he's calling up a taxi because his car broke down and she doesn't know how to fix it.
Okay.
And he has to take her away. And it's played by Steve Buscemi, who was a character who was cut from the film.
Ooh,
he was going to be in the film in the initial set of it.
Yeah, that tracks to me.
He's a fast-talking taxi driver. It's too bad he was cut for time, it looks like.
Yeah, I know. I do like Steve Buscemi does feel very like peak 90s.
Yeah.
Fast talking. Is he doing maybe some grifting? Is that how he's
He could be, yeah. He's like pitching them his like cool new idea that they should invest in, and then they infect him because they realize they're like, okay, we actually don't care about this.
Sounds like that's a thumbs down.
Yep.
The investment opportunity.
But hey, he gets to join their faculty cult, so hey, not the worst.
That's the ultimate investment in him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, we're watching Steve Buscemi, and he is dropping them off. It looks like this is where Mary Beth Louise Hutchinson is getting into the school. She's going to go talk to the coach. But then we see Steve Buscemi driving off, and he's going to Foot Locker.
Foot Locker, okay.
Yeah, he's going to Foot Locker. It looks as though Steve Buscemi needs a new pair of shoes, and there is a Foot Locker employee who, they work on commission there, Roxy. I don't know if you know this about Foot Locker.
They do? That's horrifying.
Steve Buscemi knows he wants a new pair of shoes, but can't find one, and the Foot Locker employee, she's a young teen, probably, last couple years of college. She wants to make the sale, and she's trying so hard, but it's just like, she is realizing, like, damn, we do not have the right shoe for you. And you can just sense the sadness seeping off of her. And so to make her feel better, Steve Buscemi, of course, spits out a bug into her ear and assimilates her so she doesn't have to worry about making Foot Locker sales anymore.
Or that last couple of years of college, I guess, too, huh?
Yep, college is done.
Nice, no more college.
Goodbye.
Okay, so since she doesn't have to do her job or her college anymore, I see she's walking over to a bar across from the Foot Locker because why not? And runs into Quentin Tarantino, who is playing his character from Dusk Till Dawn, who somehow didn't die.
Okay.
He's Richie Gecko.
These movies are in the same unice, From Dusk Till Dawn and The Faculty.
This is actually the prequel to From Dusk Till Dawn, which is also directed by Rodriguez. Rodriguez, correct?
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true.
So it turns out he didn't die, but he is a vampire. And, they hit it off and realize they're both monsters. Mm-hmm. But, the queen faculty creature can't have two monsters running around, so she's got to take him over, add him to the army, get a more powerful guy there. And they're hitting it off anyway, so they get to be possessed together, so hey, why not?
Let's see if we can maybe take these dials and dial in a little more to more truth in these characters. How do we see the parasite interacting with the vampirism?
That's a good question.
I can see that his eyes are bleeding, so that feels like a bizarre side effect that the parasite.
Yeah, the vampire blood doesn't like it. The parasite probably doesn't like it because he's not technically alive, but there is still like water in the form of blood there, so I'd say it's probably be okay to survive there. Not having a good time, I would assume, though. Or what would it reverse it? Would it take over, get rid of the vampire blood?
Oh, I think that is exactly what's happening. The parasite is eating all of the vampire DNA.
Ooh, okay, there we go. He's human again.
If you were to zoom in on the double helix of a vampire, you would see little nodes attaching to the DNA that have tiny little fangs that are penetrating the genome strands. So now we've got Quentin Tarantino, who admittedly is no longer a vampire, but is still kind of into the night. His sleep schedule is such that he has been sleeping during the day, waking up at night. Yeah,
you can't change that on a dime just because you've been turned into an alien hive mind.
Hey,
that's not how that works.
You and I know that better than most.
This is true. It's very true.
So Quentin Tarantino, now assimilated, former vampire, now assimilated to the faculty parasite. He's up late at night. And what's open late at night, Roxy? That's right. It's Wendy's.
Wendy's, all right.
So here we see Quentin Tarantino in
he can eat food again, too.
Oh, he's so
that's
excited.
That's got to be a big plus. That's got to be a big plus.
Have himself a little burg. He is in line at the Wendy's drive-thru, and he is... Oh, okay, I see. He is infecting the young man working the drive-thru, and looking at that gentleman in the window, at the drive-thru window, that is the man who went viral this week for getting a job at Wendy's to keep the American labor economy from collapsing. Did you see this story, Roxy?
I did not see the story. I'm sorry. This is all dependent on the thing I didn't see.
It was a post on the app Nextdoor. So also, first of all, this tells us that the faculty and our universe are in the same universe.
All right. Yeah, as well as From Dusk Till Dawn.
He wrote a post on Nextdoor that was like, guess what, everybody? I just got a job at Wendy's. That's right, I do have a full-time career, but what we're doing now isn't working. People don't want to work. Inflation has gone out of control. Socialism has perverted our workers so that nobody wants to get a job. So I'm doing my part. So if you want to come to Wendy's from like 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, come say hi to me. They were so excited to hire me because I'm doing it for the greater good.
What on earth?
Yeah, no, he sucks.
Is this real? This feels like somebody just doing it to go viral, and also that is...
Well, at
Quite
least
a
in
thing
the
for someone
faculty
to say.
universe, it is real. It is a
Oh,
real
that's-
guy, and he is working the window and just got turned into a parasite.
Well, I'm glad for that then. Hopefully that will improve him. One of the few people who can be improved by the parasite, by the sounds of it.
And it looks like that's as far as we are, because of course the
Now, all this
faculty
stuff happens
universe
at
and our
school.
universe are now the same universe, and that just
Uh-huh.
happened this week. So he has not gotten anybody else with the faculty parasite. So that's about where we're at. And so either, I mean, I guess we're just a few moments away from the teens at the high school killing the queen and eliminating it. So we're okay. We're okay now.
Okay, that's good, because think of how many people he could have infected at Wendy's.
Oh, yeah.
Just spitting parasites in their burgers.
Old people going there for morning coffee.
Yes.
High teenagers. There are so many people who go to Wendy's so much.
Yep.
All right. I'm glad we got that figured out. Uh-oh, Roxy, here he comes. The
DemonBot.
DemonBot.
Okay, what's up, DemonBot?
Congratulations, Mikey and Roxy. You have successfully reviewed the faculty. Your souls are safe for another week. Next week, you must watch the 1986 film Chopping Mall, directed by Jim Wynorski and starring Kelly Maroney, Tony O'Dell, and Russell Todd. That is chopping with ACH, as it is a clever pun. But not clever enough, as they did not spell mall. M-A-U-L.
So, okay, Roxy, we're going to watch the 1986 film Chopping Mall.
Chopping Mall. Okay, I've never even heard of this, so I'm looking forward to watching something completely blind.
It's wild. I've heard of it like 3 times in my life. First of all, from DemonBot, just now assigning it so we keep our
Okay.
souls, but also from a
Uh-huh.
podcast I was listening to and also a friend I was talking to. So
Well, hey.
it's coming up a lot in my life, and I'm excited to finally sit down and watch it.
All the stars are aligning. We're going to watch it.
Let's make a bet for Chopping Mall. That
Okay.
will, of course, go into the tally for which of us will be buying the other pizza/Chipotle/ whatever dinner we're excited for
Yeah.
whenever the deadline comes.
Yep. It's never.
Might never happen.
Well, because it only ends when we stop reviewing movies, so
Right.
it's going to go on in perpetuity till we both die, probably.
We've got to, my favorite pro wrestling organization, AEW, keeps track of every wrestler's wins and loss records, but every January they reset them. So we need a reset point. Who cares? Why are we talking about the behind the scenes on the podcast?
I don't know. We'll get a wiki someday, maybe, and then they'll keep track of it.
That's good. Roxy, how many recognizable stores do you think we'll see in this Chopping Mall? Of course, they'll be walking through the hallways of a mall, see a number of shots. Will we see a certain number of Babbage's or Ikea's or FAO Schwartz's? How many recognizable stores will we see in this Chopping Mall?
I'm assuming most of the movie is going to take place within the mall. And I don't know how many brands we're going to get endorsement from, so I'm going to guess 8 seems like a fair enough number, especially if they're like spending time in whatever the main character's store is.
Oh, right. They'll probably have like their home base store.
Yeah, so then the ones you see in the background, I feel like, 7 on top of whatever the main one is. Make sense? What about
I think
you,
the
Mikey?
fact that this wasn't seemingly, I know nothing about this movie. The fact that it didn't get like a big budget release, this isn't like a E.T. the Extraterrestrial. They're probably lower budget. They're probably shooting at a smaller mall. I'm going to say that there are fewer stores in general. I'm going to say 6 stores in the Chopping Mall.
Okay. It was the 80s as well, so it wasn't quite the mega malls that we would have in later decades. So yeah. I'd say we each have a good fair shot at winning this time around.
The pact has been sealed. I mean, the bet is confirmed. Whoever is closest to the number of recognizable storefronts in the mall shall be the winner. The loser must travel to the location of the film, the Sherman Oaks Galleria, and reenact scenes from the film. Whatever you shoot will probably have better production value than this film.
All right, Roxy, before we get out of here, what's something that's making us happy?
Yeah, something that's making me happy. I have started playing Final Fantasy XIV, which is an MMO. I do love it, and I held off playing it for so many years because I was like, if I like it, it's going to take over my life, and it kind of low-key has. But it's also made me like reach out to friends and kind of like organize playing together and everything, which has been great. So found a new game to be obsessed with, and also hanging out with friends and doing stuff, which has been nice. What about you, Mikey? Yeah.
Mine is, in a roundabout way, about friends also.
Oh,
What's
great.
making me happy is sleep. I'm finding
That sounds wonderful.
if I go to sleep with my little phone, like curled up next to me watching like a speed run,
Mm-hmm.
my brain has now 100% associated, specifically Metroid Dread speedruns, with
Oh,
sleep.
okay.
And I clonk out. Let me tell you, I am gone. I am just
You found your sleep
asleep.
trigger. You
Boom.
found a sleep trigger. That's wonderful, Mikey.
I am having such vivid dreams.
Oh,
including
is
one-
it about Metroid?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's about wild business,
Are you a CEO?
including one dream where I am with my 3 best friends. We are in my very first Los Angeles apartment. They were never
Okay.
in this apartment, so I was confused as to what was going on.
Okay,
And
so
then
it's
you
like
know how
current
dreams-
best friends, not like from when you
Yes.
moved in.
Current
Okay.
best friends. And you know how dreams sometimes just change locations without really explaining why? All of a sudden,
Mhm.
this first apartment I was in became bigger and was holding a massive party. And guess who's at this
Oh.
party? But Barack Obama and his entire family. And I
Wow.
was so worried about what I could say to him. But then I was like,
Oh.
hey, my friends are here, so it doesn't matter. I can just go say hi to him and just be like, hey, I am a big fan of yours. These are my good friends.
And so you got to hang out with Barack Obama
Mhm.
and your friends. That sounds delightful.
It was very nice.
Dreamscapes. Nice, Mikey. Also, just like, I mean, I think we both struggled with sleep schedules and stuff because we're both like creative minded people who are freelancers to an extent.
Mhm.
So we have insane schedules.
Ain't no bosses to hold our schedule down, but we wish we did have schedules to hold our schedules down.
Yeah. So like finding a sleep trigger like that is like discovering gold. You found a gold mine, Mikey, and I'm very happy for you
Thank
for
you.
that.
Roxy, every week before we escape the scary basement, we do have to commit some sort of atrocity against the guardsmen of the basement.
Sometimes.
I am, of course, prepared. I have a small, I believe it's called a bolo. It's 2 metal balls tied together via like a rope string. And I'm just
Okay.
gonna whip it around over my head.
Okay, I'm ducking. Do not use this.
No.
Okay, I'm glad I ducked even more so.
All right, I'm gonna open up the
Okay.
basement door.
Okay.
Ugh.
Oh my god, Mikey, did you just hit yourself with it? What happened? Okay, well, I think Mikey just knocked himself out with it. I'm gonna pick him up. Okay, okay, let me pick him up. Alright, okay. Hey, wouldn't you know it? There's actually nobody up here today. There's just a little sign that says on break. Okay, good. That was extremely lucky. Okay, come on, let's get out of here, unconscious Mikey. Alright, okay. I don't know how long I can do this. My puny arm muscles.